Hi, and welcome back to Football Made Simple.
Two-thirds of the way to a treble, Manchester City secured the FA Cup, running out 2-1 winners thanks to a Gundogan double, while Fernandes netted for the Reds. It was a tightly contested encounter, but what tactics did we see from City, and how did United look to counteract this? Let's take a look, with a focus on City in possession. From the goal kick, City would look to build with a back three, as they usually do. Stones would push up early into the midfield alongside Rodri, and it was Ortega who would be the third man on the ball alongside Diaz, with Walker being the outlet option at right centre-back. In these phases, United would look to start fairly narrow with their wingers, whilst Eriksen would push up alongside Rashford so that they would be ready to press the more central players. Often, this would lead to Walker receiving the ball as the outlet option, where Sancho could then spring, looking to apply pressure and force Manchester City long. And in open play, United were well aware that City tend to dominate through the centre due to their overwhelming numbers in possession, and where most teams might have a setup similar to this in order to ensure the midfield is picked up, United instead opted for more of a 4-2-4, with Fred and Casemiro being the deepest men, Rashford and Eriksen tasked with keeping their eyes on the pivots, but crucially, Fernandes and Sancho would not stay wide, but instead operated extremely narrowly, so that United looked to cut out the centre as an option entirely, and this would make it much more difficult to find the men in the half spaces. City did respond by playing with a much wider back three than usual in order to have numbers outside of this narrow block. However, when a wider centre-back would get on the ball in these situations, that would be the cue for a winger to press, whilst the rest of that front pressing four, who operated as a pack, would then shift across, again looking to force the wider centre-back backwards or into longer passes. However, City were particularly patient when they were on the ball, with one of their centre-backs pausing on the ball in order to draw one of the men who were meant to be picking up the pivots higher up the pitch. When Eriksen was drawn, that could cause problems, as it now meant there was more of a 2 versus 1 against Rashford if Sancho hadn't had the time to come across. This would be made worse by the fact that when the ball did go wide, Fernandes would be dragged to the fullback, meaning that the midfielder was now ahead of United's centre forward. So, City could look to manoeuvre ways into the midfield in these situations, and then look to play higher up the pitch. But the wide regions were the major focus for Manchester City, and they had different ways of looking to take advantage of them. Out wide, the fullbacks were pretty happy to go 1 versus 1 with their men, so instead, the wingers would stay extremely high up the pitch, pinning them into deeper regions. And in these situations, once again, when the winger got the chance to press the wider centre-back, De Bruyne and Gundogan on the far side often identified the opportunity to relieve the pressure by dropping deep to receive. And what this would often lead to is one of the pivots having to be dragged out of position. And we could see the exact same mechanisms on the far side when Fernandes was pressing Akanji, with Casemiro being dragged wider. This would be particularly problematic for Manchester United, as though a winger could come out wider, Eriksen's higher positioning would mean that there was often a sole pivot left in this midfield region, and they were often on the far side as they had been covering the opposite man in the half space, meaning that now there was potential for a pivot or the dropping Haaland to look to receive in these pockets of space, and then drive the team higher up the pitch. And in fact, generally having these 2 versus 2 situations with the men in the half spaces meant that often De Bruyne and Gundogan would drag their men wider, once again creating space, where if Rodri and Stones created a passing channel, Haaland time and again was looking to drop deep and receive, and this would then often draw the centre-back out of position, creating gaps that could be exploited. However, Haaland's holder play was decent, but at times the ball did bounce off of him, reducing the effectiveness of this scenario. But as the XG suggested, City did struggle to create clear-cut opportunities, which meant that most of the time, United's defensive shape was actually quite effective, with the midfielder shifting across and helping to prevent the overloads in these wider regions. And City could look like they ran out of ideas at times. But the importance and the performance of the double pivot of Rodri and Stones cannot be underestimated, as in the second half they were absolutely crucial in helping City maintain some of that control, as they were able to maneuver situations where they could get one of the pivots to receive between the lines so that Haaland wouldn't have as much onus to drop deep. And this was often achieved by staggering their pivots. So if Rashford was pressing, if Rodri for example dropped deep, drawing Eriksen, that would open up the opportunity for Stones to receive, although there were various ways in which these combinations worked. It was a big win for City, decided by excellence in individual moments or brilliance once again by Gundogan, rather than creating chance after chance. One more trophy and the citizens will complete the treble. But what did you guys think of this match? And how will the Champions League final play out? Drop it down below. For the manager tactical scores, City were dominant. However, United did well to limit their chances, meaning Pep earns a 7.5, whilst Ten Hag earns a 6. But again, drop your ratings down in the comments below.
I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, you might enjoy the content available on my Patreon. Not only does Patreon help to support the continued production of content, as I am a one-man team, but it also gives you early access to videos that will come on the channel. You'll also get exclusive videos, get to vote on polls, and so much more. And it's cheaper than ever, no longer having a tier system, so everyone on the Patreon gets access to all the content. So head over to patreon.com/footballmadesimple to check it out.
But that's all for today, and remember, keep it simple.